Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, welcome you industry heroes. Thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. This platform right here, the one that I'm pointing to, right there, you can see it, is dedicated to you, you professional. You are bold, you are brave, you dare greatly. And man, do you innovate, you're changing the lives and you're changing the world as we speak. Why not? Why not celebrate you? All right. You know we always have great interviews, right? We do. We just have great interviews. I take it for granted. You shouldn't take it for granted because it's an exceptionally great time to interview great people. In the hot seat, Dan Anderson. That's Anderson. And he is with a company called Life Cycle Engineering. You go out to his stat card and you're going to say, yeah, he's smarter than everybody else, especially me. Anyway.
Oh, Scott, you're too kind. You're too kind, my friend.
Yeah, Dan Anderson right there, baby. Hey, Dan, I got a quote that I want to share.
Yeah.
You got to do that. And then we're going to go into that nice little 411 on who you are.
Awesome.
All right, listeners, right here. I always have codes. And, of course, I'm using my computer. Anyway, this is from Winston Churchill. And I'm a big fan of Winston Churchill. Don't get me wrong. I am.
Oh, I like him, too.
Now, I sit there, and some quotes are fine. Some are, you see it come across LinkedIn, and you're going, oh, that's pretty cool. But some are maybe a little, this one's good. And you guys have got to take note of this. A positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. Industry, right there. That's what you guys do. You see the invisible, you feel the intangible, and you achieve the impossible because you guys are bold, brave, and dare greatly. I love it. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. How about yourself?
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It is sort of an unusual time, huh?
It is an unusual time. Still continues to be an unusual time. Almost a year since it started being unusual.
I'm telling you, it's funny. People come to me and say, Scott, what do you think is going to happen? I have a zero clue. I don't know. I don't see anything changing. All I know I'm changing. I'm the one that just sort of sits in this salt mine right here and just does these podcasts and have no interest in going. I cook way too much, and we do all of these great things because I think industry, I'm telling you, man, industry is going to be changing, and it's important in a positive way. All right, for the listeners out there, Dan, give us a little 411 on who you are.
So I'm Dan Anderson. I'm the manager of the Life Cycle Institute at Life Cycle Engineering, which is the educational arm of our business. I've got a history in maintenance software and reliability. So, worked in plants for a bit and also as a consultant for a while. So that's a little bit about me. I've been with LCE for 14 years, also serve on the SMRP board of directors as the secretary.
All right. As you can imagine, he's got some major reliability street cred out there. And once again, I'm looking at the stat card. You know what? We have 444 mutual connections.
Oh, nice.
We got a small city.
I know.
That's amazing. We run in the same circles. That is, and by the way, these circles are fantastic. I mean, these reliability professionals and what you're working in are absolutely, they're passionate about reliability. They're passionate about helping you, and they got big hearts. They all do.
Oh yeah, I learn something new every day, Scott, in this business for sure.
How does that happen? I mean, you're right in the thick of things, and you're always engaged. You're always chirping with other people who are in reliability, and it never stops. It never stops.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I've as I hear very often at Life Cycle Engineering, a lot of the folks that we have working for us are in their second careers. They just are passionate about it, right? They're passionate about best practices and helping others, really, you know.
They're special people to have at a party, that's for sure, because
Yeah.
they're going to talk your ear off about reliability and why it's important, and it is. Don't get me wrong, it is. Okay,
yeah.
so listeners, this is what makes this particular conversation very unique. And now we know about the pandemic, and I'm looking off. If you're looking at the video, you can see I'm looking at my other screen because that's where the document resides. So don't be distracted by my head turning this way. Now, what that means is that we're going to be talking, okay, the pandemic hits. We still have to be able to educate. We still have to be able to communicate and educate people who are in need of this information. We all of a sudden had to say, hey, we're in person, we go to this place, and we do these things. We have flip charts, and we do the typical learning. Now, all of a sudden, we have to become virtual, and that's where Dan steps in. Dan, let's start talking a little bit about the effective adult learning in a virtual world. I've got this whole thing highlighted. What does that mean?
Well, it's just being able to effectively deliver education via an online platform. So, you know, there's a number of online platforms out there. You've got WebEx, you've got Microsoft Teams, you've got Zoom. You know, our preference is Zoom because it does have the tools in there. But if you think about it, almost a year ago, Scott, I mean, March 16th, 2020, you know, the LCE offices were closed down due to COVID. And, you know, we had to carry on with the business and providing effective adult learning to our clients. So, you know, we had folks that had signed up for classes, and we host a little bit over 1,000 folks a year through our open enrollment classes, through our on-site classes, things like that. So we had to change our business quickly and had to think of, you know, how are we going to deliver the same value to our clients that they were receiving from the classroom training, but do it through an online vehicle. And it may seem very simple to some. You know, what do? Just deliver the slides via the internet? And no, it's a lot different. And you have to go through and reconstruct the course. You have to really put a lot of rigor into making sure that, you know, the participant on the other end, and now they're not in a classroom. They're not in there, you know, interacting with their peers. They're, you know, actually sitting at a computer at their house. How do you make it interesting and relevant to them?
Yeah. How did LCE come to this? I mean, the reality is that LCE pivoted real quick, and I hate using the word pivot. Sorry about that, anybody listening, but you understand what I'm saying. It is core to your business. You do great training. And you touch a lot of people in a positive, and companies in a positive way. Now, you've got to go virtual. What were that conversation you're having in your organization? What was it like? And it's just saying, hey, we got to do it. And it's my understanding you guys did it relatively quick.
We did, within a couple weeks. I mean, we didn't convert all of our classes, but the ones that were on the high priority scale, you know, ones that we had classes coming up within the next 2 weeks, next month or so, you know, those took priority. And so, you know, we quickly went through and, you know, got our facilitators on board, got our instructional designers on board. Thank God for my training coordinators. You know, they quickly changed their job roles from, you know, somebody who would, you know, deliver materials and making sure the class goes off without a hitch, you know, those sort of responsibilities, to actually producing the workshops. So, you know, it was a lot of different, you know, because everybody was scared. Everybody was afraid that, oh my gosh, with all this going on, are we going to lose our jobs? You know, how's it going to work out? And so you really just had to make the folks feel good, but have them understand that there was going to be a shift in priorities and job responsibilities. So, you know, the training coordinators are an easy one because we turned them into producers where they were actually hosting a class. So they would join the subject matter expert on a class and make sure that, you know, everything went off without a hitch. There were no technical difficulties. Everybody tested Zoom in advance. And so when the SME got on the line or the facilitator was there to teach the class, they could focus on just that, teaching the class, versus having to deal with, you know, a volume issue or something like that.
There's a ton of questions that I have, and one would be, this is fantastic, but really, prior to the pandemic, LCE was on site, or in classroom. That was your model. That's what you did. And then all of a sudden, we need to figure out some sort of a virtual way to make it engaging and achieve the same objective of, adult learning. I'm consuming the content. I'm not. I mean, did you guys just sort of sit around and say, "Hey, I found something out on the internet that sort of gives us a guidance," or did you just sort of say, "Hey, we're going to have to be different. We're going to have to make it more interactive," whatever it might be? What was that like?
Well, it was going through. I mean, my company generally uses WebEx.
Yeah.
That's our standard online platform. With this, though, we found the additional capabilities through Zoom were critical because, like you had mentioned, Scott, in a traditional face-to-face classroom setting, you have folks break out on flip charts, learn from each other. We needed the capabilities to have breakout rooms and have a whiteboard within those great breakout rooms so everybody could brainstorm through certain concepts and objectives with the course. And then also, we had self-paced online learning modules already built. So, we integrated those into the classroom experience. We integrated more videos to where, there might be a storytelling by the facilitator. We would possibly go through and have a video in there so it resonate a little bit more. Having online polls are great. If you're having folks brainstorm through a class, having that capability through Zoom really helped us, to share content and handouts and all that stuff. So, some of the things you take for granted, on a typical conference call where we're just talking to each other, but to have those capabilities that, really focus on the activity-based learning of the participant, that was critical for us, and that was one of the first steps was just picking out, what online platform we wanted to use.
Yeah, it was funny. Pre-pandemic, I've used Zoom. I don't use all the capabilities of Zoom, but it has a lot of horsepower. And pre-pandemic, I remember having conversations like, "Hey, I know it's Zoom. You don't know too much about Zoom. Click the bottom." There would be instructional things that we would have to do. From my perspective, it's been a great boon. I never have any problems with anybody getting on Zoom now.
Yeah.
My life's easier as a result of the pandemic. Just a joke. Just a joke. Now, I'm looking at the document, and one of the things that stands out, and there are two things. One, and this is for your listeners, right? If you think you're going to just sort of convert a classroom into a virtual type of environment, I think that is a sort of a naive view of how to create a virtual classroom and virtual learning.
That's correct.
That's one. It's just, you can't do it, and therefore you need somebody like Dan and company to figure out, well, here's real, here's virtual, what do I need to do? One of the things that stands out as a result of that, I see that you have 40 to 60 hours of professional instructional designers going into each one of these just for 1 hour of class.
Yeah,
40
just
to
for 1 hour of
60
content.
Hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why?
Depending on the fidelity, right? Or the advancedness of the learning, right? So if you're just sitting there simply lecturing, that doesn't seem like much. And one of the reasons why, folks come to a professional consulting organization is for learning that produces results, right? In the end of the day, that's what we all want out of training, is something that's going to give us something we can put in our tool belt and is going to cause us to do something differently, that we were doing before. And so, the instructional design, that's an interesting fact there, Scott, because a lot of people don't know that outside of that. They think simply, well, how come we can't just convert the class that we used to deliver to virtual? Well, we put a lot of work into it, Scott. We abbreviated, we took out a lot of, we focused on the learning objectives, we chunked it out, took out some of the content and replaced it with, some more things that would resonate better to the online platform. And, really focused on, what would this class look like, and how are we going to maintain the attention of our students that are going through this curriculum? There's a lot of things that'll distract you when you're sitting at your house.
Yeah, like that ham sandwich that's right over there. I want that ham sandwich.
Yeah, that ham sandwich, the laundry pile, the garbage, all that stuff that goes on at your house.
Right.
So you have to be engaged, and that's the most important part was, starting with the end in mind and being engaged.
So that to me is that's a loaded question, right? One of the things that I think is at the heart is that facilitator. I might feel more comfortable with me going tootling off and being on site and being able to do that. But we're talking a virtual facilitator. We're talking somebody that has to feel comfortable being in that. Talk to us a little bit about that as a success option.
Yeah, no. I mean, you'll never hear me call the folks that deliver our classes instructors. They're always facilitators.
Right.
And there's a reason behind that, because they're facilitating learning in the classroom. They're helping folks to learn from each other. And so, you got a dynamic person. Sometimes you have people that are subject matter experts. They know a lot, Scott, and can sit there and tell you stories all day long. But are they good in front of the classroom? Do they get people to interact with each other, learn from each other? And are they dynamic? Do they integrate energizers into their delivery? Do they just sit up there and tell stories, or do they get everybody involved? And so, that's definitely a critical aspect, especially when it comes to the virtual deliveries, because, again, you're trying to energize folks and keep them engaged and always have them, really on topic and contributing to the class.
And see, you receive nonverbal communication in a real setting, right? If I'm standing up and I'm looking at a class and I'm delivering whatever, content, I can see people who are engaged and people who are not. And it gives me the cue to go over to the people and say, hey, what do you think about this? And try to bring them back in and getting engaged. In a virtual world, that's even compounded even more in a greater sense. And so that facilitator must have just tremendous capabilities to be able to make sure that everybody is engaged, because, to your point, learning that produces results requires that you keep those individuals engaged, right?
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the things, too, is really critical about the Zoom, training sessions. Have people keep their cameras on. There's easy ways to go on mute and disappear, if you don't have your camera on. So we do highly encourage that people have their cameras on.
I never did that. Never. I've never. Yeah, it happens all the time. And that is a real good point, because you do need to see that. You need to have those nonverbal communications happen if you're truly interested in delivering a solid product. Now, we talked about the Zoom, but let's talk a little bit about this whole pandemic. What type of roadblocks are you seeing out there from this desire to bring in this virtual type of learning?
Well, first and foremost, even when, we first started deploying it, Scott, a lot of people were just waiting for it to be over. They were like, I want to get back to classroom. I don't want to do the virtual training. So it's getting over that negative connotation, I think, a lot of times, too, that people feel that it's not as effective because maybe they have sat in on an online training session and were bored to death and, just were like, oh gosh, this is horrible. I don't ever want to do training through the computer.
I have to interrupt. It's biblical proportion. That scenario, sitting through a virtual training environment and being bored out of my mind, it is biblical. It happens all the time. Kudos to LCE. Continue. I'm sorry. I had to jump in because that is a big deal.
No, it is. And it's one of the things that a lot of people even still have a hard time getting over. So, I'd highly encourage you to, if you ever get the chance to sit in on one of our classes, Scott, you'll find it really engaging and you'll see the difference. And so a lot of times, too, I've been having to work with folks just through their, hey, we're going to wait until things get back to normal. Well, we don't know when it's going to get back to normal. When is it going to get back to normal? I don't think it'll ever change. We're always going to have this virtual type environment. I mean, we're We plan on going back to face-to-face training when it's a suitable time, a safe time for us to do it. But we're also this has opened up a whole new product line for us, Scott, to reach people on, maybe the other side of the world that can't travel to the U.S. for this stuff. So I think it was very difficult getting over that negative connotation initially.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think still people are, like, again, kudos to LCE to be able to recognize the necessity to truly adjust the way you deliver, training. That's huge from a virtual perspective. Now you have a bona fide model of being able to do that and do it effectively and keeping people engaged. Powerful. I find that people, unlike LCE, sometimes companies want to do it, and do shortcuts. I can't look at a crystal ball and think that things will go ever back to whatever pre-pandemic normal. Maybe 10 years. I don't know. When you're always receiving news that we're gonna stop people from travel anyway, I think that personally, if you can crack this nut, I think you forever change the DNA of me and how I learn. Because I want to learn, but I don't want to be bored. But if you can satisfy that learning and make it entertaining, and I'm consuming it, I'm forever changed. I think you guys are onto something pretty big.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you. Yeah, we're definitely in the business of learning that produces results, right? Because there's a lot of companies out there that just are, if you want a check in the box, and I can sense it from a mile away when somebody comes and starts talking about price and this and that, and they're just looking to, my boss said I need to get this training, and they don't understand, why they're doing it or what they want to do differently, because of it. Then, we're not in that business. We're not in that business of just a check in the box. We want to make an impact on people's lives.
So if I'm interested, you're active out on LinkedIn, I would imagine, because we've got 444 same connections. So,
yeah.
But what type of, how can you, I'm looking at this, you got a $400 voucher of Life Cycle Institution classes through March 30. It's a credit. It's a voucher.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So you would go to the LCE website, www.lcelifecycleengineering.com, and there's a stimulus promotion that we're running through the end of March. March 31st is when we're going to be wrapping up the promotion. It's good for all of our virtual, instructor-led, and self-paced e-learning products. So if you want to sample it and you're interested, we're extending this voucher. Now it's a COVID stimulus voucher of sorts to make sure that folks, if you're looking for education, effective adult learning, and you aren't comfortable with going back to the classroom just yet, then we certainly are excited about the chance to provide that to you, and it's something that we're extending to our clients out there, along with some scholarships. So folks that have been laid off as well too from their jobs, we're willing to entertain that as well. So just trying to help folks during this period of time.
So let's say I'm interested and I'm a company, and I can use your product. It's important. I need this training. Company, Acme, whoever I am, wants to take advantage of it. That's great. What if I have in-house training and I just want to talk to you about how I can make my training more effective and still do your stuff, but I have my own, product, whatever it might be. Are you willing to entertain conversations like that?
Yes, of course. We have an instructional design team within the Life Cycle Institute that helps folks with facilitator development. So if you have subject matter experts and you want them to get in front of the classroom and deliver effective training, you can do that as well too. We're always available to support you in building a course or optimizing a course.
See, I like that.
Yeah,
look at that. LCE. Dan with a big heart. All right. Again, listeners out there, we're all about one. Remember this. We have got to be committed to education. That's one. Two, again, we've got to be committed to collaborating. We don't have all the answers. you got to reach out to Dan. He's got answers that can make your business, your life much better. And then, of course, a natural outgrowth is innovation. We're talking about making virtual training more innovative. Dan's got it. Team LCE's got it. I'm just telling you right now, I'm going to have that link out on this $400 voucher out on industrialtalk.com. You're going to get it. I'm going to promote it. You're going to, and reach out to Dan because I'm going to have his contact information as well. Dan, thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk podcast.
Oh, thank you, Scott. My pleasure. Always a pleasure to connect with you, sir.
It is nice, isn't it? I like that. All right, listeners, I want you to be bold. I want you to be brave. I want you to dare greatly because you are responsible for changing the world. I know it's heavy, but you are. Hang out with people who are bold. Hang out with people who are brave and daring greatly, and I guarantee you will change the world. Thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk podcast. And, be safe out there. We're going to have another great interview right around the corner. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.